We've modeled our lathed object. Let's now have a little bit more control over level of detail. If I select that object, remember in the lathe modifier, we have the ability to control the number of segments. And that's the number of segments radially. We can see that really clearly here in the top viewport. If I click and drag on that segment spinner, we can change the number of radial segments. I can increase or decrease that. Let's say I'll set it up to something really high just for purpose of demonstration to like 128. Now we've got a very high level of detail in the radial axis. But in the other axis along the length of our spline, we're not able to control that level of detail directly from within the lathe modifier. There is a way to do it, however. It's interpolation of the spline itself. Each line in 3ds Max has an internal control to set the level of detail between 2 points, and that's called spline interpolation. Let's take a look. Select the object, go down to the line base object, and we can see this with show end result turned on or off. Let's take a look at it with it turned off first. I'll turn off show end result and get in pretty close here and scroll up to the top, and you're looking for interpolation in the modify panel. Open that up, and you've got some parameters here. The number of steps is the most important one, and that is the number of straight line divisions between 2 control vertices. And if I reduce the number of steps here, bring that down, we can start to see things get really blocky. If I take it down to 0, then we only get straight line segments in between 2 points. Increase it up a bit. That's affecting the line itself, and then that is being passed up to the lathe. And we can see that if we turn on show end result and look at this, especially in the perspective view, it's easiest to see. I can reduce the number of steps, and I'm reducing level of detail in that axis. These other switches are kind of interesting. Optimize will create a straight line segment between 2 corner vertices. That way you won't have a bunch of divisions on a straight line. If the surface is not curved, then you usually don't want to subdivide that surface or create a bunch of unnecessary polygons. So Optimize will basically cull out any of the detail in a straight line region of your object. You do see a little bit of effect here. Let's take a look at that. Down here, you can see it. Optimize off, and we get a lot of unnecessary vertices here because those are 2 corner vertices there. So I'll turn that on, and then we get a much cleaner result. Now, adaptive is less useful, I think, and what it tries to do is add divisions where needed in order to maintain some level of curvature, but that level of curvature is arbitrary and you have no control over it. You can turn on adaptive, and you can see what it's trying to do is increase the level of detail here where there's higher curvature, and then have less detail in areas of lower curvature. But again, you don't have any control over that, and I don't use it very often. Usually leave it off, and if you need to increase detail in some area, the way to do it is actually to add more points on your line using the refine tool that we saw earlier. Okay, pretty cool. So that's how we shape up a line using its interpolation settings to control level of detail.